Hello internet people, it's me, it's Pandemic Judith. It's been a while, I know, I don't owe you anything, shut up. Today, as the title of my video suggests, I'm gonna talk to you about the Matriarchy Theory. Of course, it's not something that really exists. For me, it began as a thought experiment. It's basically you take the Patriarchy Theory and then you flip the gender. Men are oppressed by women and society instead of, women being oppressed. So you take the patriarchy, and if it's about forcing women into certain gender roles, then the matriarchy theory is about women doing the same to men. They impose those gender roles on men and punish them if they disobeyed. Of course, feminists will tell you, especially the gender-critical feminists, that gender roles are bad. But here we are. So I have 5 points for this, and for me the most obvious one is men being made the provider for women and children. They're still to this day expected to be the main provider of the family. And they are giving responsibilities, and men who can't provide are not seen as very good quality men. If you have your classic example of the women who goes into a company, who's she gonna flirt with? The IT tech, or the mailroom guy, or the CEO? Women like higher status men overall, generally speaking. And you see that a lot in dating too, even though the feminists push towards a more balanced and equal place for everyone. Women, generally speaking, of course, still going to prefer that the guy pays for the date, pays for everything. Women also benefit from men's labor a lot, because men will do the hard work, and I'm not saying women don't do hard work here, but if you look at it from the perspective of men as provider, they make the money, they go home, they give it to the women so she can go spend it. You still have that in the classic pattern of a housewife. That's how it works. They don't work. Where do they get their money? You have the trophy wife too. She doesn't work. Where does she get your money? Especially when you consider that I think the statistic is 75% of spending is made by women, and men make a lot more money than women. So you're gonna tell me that women have zero social power when men have the fortune but women spend it? So patriarchy is weird. The second point is men must protect women. You see feminists demanding that men keep women safe constantly. I saw an article a few months back about exactly that. A woman on the street being harassed, being surrounded by other men who didn't do anything. I mean, don't they know it's their duty to protect women? I mean, if there's a patriarchy, how can women even demand this out of men? And even more, how come do men even comply to this if there is a patriarchy? A really good example is during, I think it started in World War I, but it was still present in World War II. It was called the White Feather Campaign, in which women in First World War suffragette would give out white feathers to men who were not fighting and dying in wars. They were still at home, so it was a show of cowardice. Take this feather, you coward. Don't you know your place in society? You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be fighting to protect everyone. And also what ends up happening in many men is I think it's Karen Strogan who quoted this expression. It's the good guy syndrome. It's men who decide to fall in line in what expected of men as provider and protector. Another version of this you see online is going to be your typical white knight, the guy who always come at the defense of the women, and especially the feminists, in a way using feminists' whole their own terminology, you could see those good guys as being full of internalized misogyny. You know, they've accepted what women is telling them, and they've internalized that, and now they think that's their role in society, to just listen to women all the time. Another aspect of this is the way men will put women on a pedestal. I think if you look at modern times, OnlyFans, you know, that website where women go on and put provocative pictures and videos of themselves, naked pictures, and the men have to pay to be able to see those pictures. There was a famous woman, I think she's a model or something, she opened an OnlyFans, and in one day she made $1 million in 24 hours. So you're gonna tell me these women are oppressed when they're milking guys for cash? That's patriarchy is weird. And another way you see this is in, especially in art. And if you look at Renaissance painting, how many painters in paintings displayed beautiful women being painted as goddesses? You have the creation of Venus, I think, is that one with the naked ladies coming out of a clamshell, like women as goddesses. And you have poets too, venerating women. And you're gonna tell me that these men are patriarchal people who wants to dominate women? That doesn't work. And even today, along with the OnlyFans things, you have men who are expected to compliment and give gift, and you have these women who think that being in a relationship with a man is about the man paying your rent, paying for your nails, paying for your hair, paying for your bills. And men are like, well, that's how a relationship works. And that leads to the next point, which is the normalization of female abuse. And I mean that female who abuse men. And one of the reasons this happens is that men must take abuse, otherwise they're not real men. They're seen as lesser people that women don't want to date. And that happens because all the concern towards abuse go towards women. Male victims are not being recognized as victims due to this old pervasive idea that men are not victims. Women are victims, men are the oppressor. So it's going to be hard for people to see men as victims. And especially too when you have feminist organization who keeps denying resources be shared because they think, oh yeah, but most victims are women, so it's just normal that all the resources go towards women. Like, no, like 40% of victims are male, so 40% of the resources should go towards men. That's what equality is, that's what fairness is, but not for a feminist. And all this leads to what end up being generating from that is a lack of sympathy for what men go through. And there's a name for it. It's called the empathy gap, in which women are seen as the one to sympathize with because, oh, they have such a hard time. But we never consider men having such a hard time. Well, when I say we never, I mean the general population, people who are in the men's rights movement or sympathize with the movement, they know all about this. And there's also what's end up happening is an enforcement of what's called male disposability. The White Feather campaign was all about that. It was understanding that men are disposable. They're the one who's supposed to go do the hard labor, who still nowadays do not only do the hard labor, but are most of the work death. Men go do hard labors and they die from it, and we're like, that's normal, that's what men are supposed to do. But women shouldn't die on the job. No. And, you know, in conclusion for all of that is the reason why the patriarchy theory took sorry, I can't read my own handwriting sometimes. reason why patriarchy theory took off is due to our ingrained willingness to help women, basically. Women gain social power from being viewed as victim. Men do not. Women are, it helps them by being viewed as victim. It allows women to accumulate resources by generating sympathy in people. That's how it works. Men don't generate resources by being looked at as pitiful. Those are seen as lesser men that we want nothing to do with it, because that's not the basic model. That's not the gender role that the men are supposed to embody. The men are supposed to be strong and capable and dutiful. And all of that, in a way, is, I'm going to say, men's fault, but it's not just behavior. Like, it's deeply ingrained psychological components here. Men gain power from taking on duties and responsibility, which also gives them positive emotion, a sense of purpose and meaning. And that's why you have an abusive woman and the man is thinks it's normal. Like, when I started looking into things like years ago in the men's rights movement and the way men are treated in society, that's something that I found really astonishing to discover, how many men are in abusive relationship and they don't even realize it. Because there's such a normalization of women being abusive. They think being thrown things at, it's normal. Being yelled at and being insulted, it's normal. It's not. It's abuse. And it's so common. And feminist movement do a lot to encourage and normalize this behavior by trying to validate women's anger. But they don't give men this equal sympathy, this equal treatment. Men's anger is not valid, because when women are angry at men, it's because men kill women. But when men are angry at women, it's because a guy asked a girl out and she said no, so now he hates women. Like, there's a complete lack of sympathy here, and it's so fucking stupid. And you can see how this patriarchy theory, it's all around this victim status, that men gain no power from being viewed as victims. Quite the opposite. So that's why I only left it as a thought experiment. I wanted to write this as a sort of an essay, but it doesn't really work. Patriarchy theory is not going to take off, because you see why here. The way we look at men and women in society is so different. It's not equal at all. And in a way, it shouldn't really be equal, because we're different. But things should be fair. At least if things are not perfectly equal, they should at least be fair. And the feminist movement is doing a lot to make sure that things are not fair, in order that women gain more resources. And that's sort of at the core of this matriarchy theory, in which they push men to keep men in that position where women really benefit from it. And feminists will never look at it that way, I promise you that. So thank you for stopping by. I know I haven't made videos in a long time, because videos are not my favorite thing, but it's good for me to be able to talk more. So I do have another video planned, and I hope I'll see you around, and enjoy your pandemic. Bye.